Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk about Biden's executive orders and what they are. Now I'm only going to talk about a couple of them. I'm only going to be talking about 6 executive orders: 13991, 13990, 13989, 13988, 13986, and 13985. Now those numbers just are how they register them in the Federal Registry, which oddly enough I can only find 9 of them in the Federal Registry. And I'll be talking about 6 of these, the 6 that I find most interesting or most consequential. Now, in the New York Times article by, I'm sorry, I do not know how to pronounce this, and I'm not going to try. He says that, I'm guessing this is a he, he says that the Biden administration is placing these executive orders on 6 major fronts: the pandemic, immigration and visas, on climate change, on racial and LGBT equality, on economics, the economy rather, which was hit majorly by the pandemic, and on government accountability, which under the previous administration we're not even going to pretend it didn't take a hit. So he's trying to confront these major issues that he inherited 4 days ago. I will mostly be discussing, like I said, the ones that I found most consequential of these 6 in the registry. On an interesting thing, if you look at the way they put this on the New York Times, on the priorities on the actual White House website: COVID-19, climate, racial equality, the economy, healthcare, immigration, and restoring America's global standings. So this is very similar to what the New York Times said. But anyway, I think I'm just going to jump right on into the first one I'm going to be covering, which is Executive Order 13991, protecting the federal workforce and requiring mask wearing. Now, on the surface, it may look very exciting to those of us who want to end this pandemic that he's going to issue a mask mandate nationwide. Unfortunately, the president, the office of the president, does not have that kind of overreach. All this is doing is it is requiring masks for federal employees, contractors, buildings, and lands, as it highlights here in Section 2. It's only going to affect people who directly draw a paycheck from the government, essentially. So military and contractors and federal employees. So anyone who works for the government, anyone who has to go into a government building. So if you are not even active duty military, say you are retired military and you want to go to the Navy exchange, for example, on the base, you're going to have to wear a mask. He's mandating that every federal building, which military is included, you must wear a mask. And in Section 3, this is as far as he gets to a national mandate. It's just, he strongly encourages it. The Secretary of Health and Human Services and the CDC shall engage as appropriate with state, local, tribal, and territorial officials, as well as business unions, academic, and other community leaders regarding mask wearing and other public measures, with the goal of maximizing public compliance with and addressing any obstacles to mask wearing and the public health best practices identified by the CDC. So he can't actually force people to, and he can't force governors like my governor, Bill Lee. He can't force him, twist his arm into mandating masks for the state. Same with Greg Abbott or Ron DeSantis of Florida. He's not actually forcing the governors. He's not forcing this upon other states, but he is asking that they encourage it or mandated in their respective states. So, for anyone who tries to jump the gun and say that Biden is forcing us to wear these masks, no, he's not. You haven't read it. And if anyone has tried to tell you this, please be careful. Because what I've noticed is a lot of people try to jump the gun on what these executive orders actually mean. They try to jump into Biden's going to be a tyrannical president. Like, it's just misconceptions. Either spin-off, misunderstood, or complete lies. Now, the next one I'm going to go over is Executive Order 13990. This is protecting public health and environment and restoring science to tackle a climate crisis. So this is a major climate change executive order. It's geared towards this impending disaster that we must act now to stop. Now, the reason this one has become notable is because of the Keystone Pipeline. This has been in the front and, well, kind of simmering on the back burner for 12 years now with occasional spotlight. But what this is the pipeline is, I believe it's natural gas. I could be mistaken. I must admit I have not 100% done my research on Keystone. Most of my research does come from just looking through this executive order. But from what I do know, prior knowledge, is that this pipeline would go through Native American land in the Dakotas. Which, we've done enough to the Native Americans. Please just back off. But yes, what's interesting, so in Section 6, this actually revokes the March 2019 permit for the Keystone XL pipeline, which is why this executive order is being hailed and cursed, depending on your orientation to the economics of it, the environmental standpoint, the native rights, and this executive order also revokes many Trump-era executive orders, which on climate change, which most of them were revoking Obama-era executive orders regarding climate. So what I found is a lot of these executive orders are undoing what Trump did, which was undoing what Obama did. And I actually saw a clip of Ainsley Earhart of Fox and Friends complaining that Joe Biden undid Trump's legacy, his 4 years, that Joe Biden undid this in 4 hours, which if 4 hours is all it takes to undo an entire presidency, I'm not sure if the presidency was worth its salt. But yeah, so most of these executive orders that you're seeing on the screen right here, under Section 7, are Trump era that have been revoked. Most of these are 2017, a couple 2019, and look right here is 2018, which these kind of just rip back any limitations on offshore drilling, on fracking, on emissions reductions. So Joe Biden's really kind of tackling this issue, and like the title says, oopsie, I misclicked here. Like the title says, restoring science to the restoring science. And one other argument that I've heard regarding the Keystone Pipeline, I'm kind of switching gears here, is that it's going to take away jobs. That there were 12,000 jobs, and I believe Pete Buttigieg was asked about this by Senator Ted Cruz, that this is taking away jobs, and how could Joe Biden dare to do this? But what Pete Buttigieg responded with, even though this technically isn't even what he's up for, was he told esteemed Senator Cruz that the pipeline will create jobs, but diverting energy needs away from this pipeline and to renewables, which is one of the fastest growing industry in North America. Diverting these jobs will create not only more jobs, more safe jobs, but more sustainable jobs. Because once they build the pipeline, you're no longer going to have a need for those 12,000 jobs. Once it's just a done deal. But building hydroelectric dams, building wind turbines, building solar panels, and maintaining those will require more manpower than a pipeline, and will be better for the environment than a pipeline, and will be more considerate to the Native Americans, which we have already taken so much from. So that is the big deal with this second one. Now, another executive order that I'm going to look at is Executive Order 13989, which is an ethics commitment. So this goes back to bringing back the United States government, the government's accountability. Now, what this really is it's... hang on, I have it written here on my notes. This places restrictions on receiving personal gifts from lobbyists and combats lobbyists in general. Now, if we look, give me a second to find it. It may be further up. I may have already passed it. There's like specification on what can be deemed a gift. Very in-depth, this one. Sorry for this, guys. Oops, no, it must have been at the very top. Anyway, there's a big back and forth. Drat, where'd it go? Wrote the sections down for the rest of them. I appear to not have for this one. Anyway, Trump made an executive order, which is basically this executive order. But in 2021, the last full day of his presidency, he revoked his own executive order, which then, so on January 19th, Trump revoked it, his own order made in the beginning of his presidency. So then Joe Biden comes into office and he restores it. So basically Trump's trying to burn the place down, then Joe Biden comes in with a fire extinguisher, which I found very entertaining. And I wish I could find it, because it was so entertaining to me. Drat, I don't know where it went. But yeah, it's just revolving door ban, lobbyist ban. Okay, I'm just gonna have to move on from this one, guys. Man, that makes me sad, because it was very entertaining to go back through the different executive orders that have bounced around on this topic. Now this next one doesn't affect me, but I find it very time appropriate, and it regards sexual orientation, preventing and combating discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. Now again, like the mask mandate one, this one isn't like a blanket nationwide thing. This only refers to government employees and government agencies. So, in Section 2, I believe, yes, the head of each agency shall, as soon as practicable, and in consultation, I cannot read today, I'm sorry guys, in consultation with the Attorney General as appropriate, review all existing orders, regulations, guidance documents, policies, programs, and or other agency actions that basically discriminate based on sexual orientation. So he's going through, and so he's completely putting an end to Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was kind of the government's policy through the 90s and early 2000s, really up until Obama. So again, Joe Biden's kind of living, prolonging the legacy of his past administration. This was a very short order, but I found it interesting, especially since it comes with Pete Buttigieg being, if he's approved by the Senate, the first openly gay cabinet member in American history. Now he's already made history being the first openly gay person to run for the head of the ticket for a major party, which had I been of age to vote, he would have received my vote. I believe my father voted for him in the primary. But alas, we now have President Joe. But yes, this one, it seems very timely, and it's almost a well, duh. How was this not a thing earlier? Executive order. Just furtherment on equal rights. And though it's not a race issue, which I believe the last two that I will be covering are race issues, it definitely is on time. So this next one that I'll cover is Executive Order 13986, which has to do with the census, ensuring a lawful and accurate enumeration and appointment pursuant to the decennial census. Now, Trump famously made a mandate, I believe it was an executive order, that all illegal aliens or non-citizens should not be counted in the census. Which, the reason that's an issue, most of these people live in one area of a state or even a city. Those areas would then be heavily impacted and will heavily need financial aid because of this pandemic. And the fact that they're not counting in the census means that they don't count for population. And the way the government hands out grants and financial redistribution, I don't know if redistribution would be the right word there, but anyway, they look at the population to find out what's needed. Now, if those illegal aliens, which aliens, I believe they're trying to take that out, it just is such a demeaning word. If those non-citizens who are likely working jobs destroyed by the pandemic are not being counted, then those areas are going to be underprovided when it comes to healing. And those areas are going to be underrepresented in the House of Representatives for the United States, for the House of Representatives of their own state, even on a completely local level when it comes to their city representation, even. So he was just trying to screw over these people, which I don't like using that term, especially when it comes to the president and when it comes to policy discussion. I don't like to use slang like that, but it's what he was trying to do. And Joe Biden is coming in here and he's seeing that, he's calling the bluff, and he's reversing it. He knows that this is not how America works. And I believe, give me a second. Yes, so he's revoking, it was an executive order. Executive Order 13880, which excluded illegal aliens from the census, from the 2020 census. So this has already passed, but Joe Biden's fixing it for the future, which is just kind of going to be the motto of this guy's presidency, I'm getting the sense of. Now for this last one, this is probably, when I was taking notes on it for this video, I was getting bored. This is my last one. But as soon as I got to section 2, I saw a word that spiked my interest. Equity. Now, the term equity means the consistent or systematic, fair, just, and impartial treatment of all individuals, including individuals who belong to underserved communities that have been denied such treatment, such as Black, Latino, Indigenous, and Native American persons, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders, and other persons of color, members of religious minorities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, so LGBTQ persons, persons with disabilities, persons who live in rural areas, persons otherwise adversely affected by persistent poverty or inequality. So that's their definition of equity. Basically, anyone who's being neglected by this system. Now, equity is something that needs to be stressed more. America has become too enthralled with the term equality, which, though on face value, seems fair. Equality, everyone gets the equal amount of things. It seems perfect, and it would be perfect had slavery not been a thing, had immigrants not been coming here because of strife in their own areas. Had everyone started the same, equality would be great because they'd be receiving the same. But not everyone's starting the same. And I've heard many anecdotes of how this works. And my favorite that I've heard was, say you and 3 other people are playing Monopoly. And you play a couple rounds, you buy up most of the properties. You're putting down houses, hotels. You're going great, everyone's going great, no one's really too far under the bus. But then a 5th person comes up, says, hey, I want to play. So you get to play. You deal him some money, now he's in, but everything's bought up. You, the original players, have a major advantage, even though the rules are the same for every player, even though because you're starting from different points, it is not fair. That 5th player will never catch up. And that 5th player, if we use the African-American black community, the 5th player was held down because of slavery. That's where all of this comes from. I love it when people just look at, oh, why do so many black people live in that area of Harlem? Like, they just don't think to ask why. They just deal with that as a fact. That's just how it is. And don't question it. So then when you bring up equity, oh, well, these people will be getting more. They say, well, that's not fair. Why should they get more? Well, they've been held down. They don't have the land. They don't have the property. They can't make wealth off that. So they're stuck in that area. They're stuck in poverty. They're stuck, and because of poverty, crime tends to form. So they're pushing for equity. They want to bring them up. They want to bring up these underprivileged communities. And it's not just the black, Latino, indigenous. It's also those in rural areas. So the core Republican voters who might be enthralled in far-right Sean Hannity figures, who's going to tell them that equity is the root of evil because it would take away from multimillionaires like Sean Hannity and give to his viewers, who he has so successfully gaslighted into thinking that I could rant on this forever. But it's going to help all races, everyone affected persistently by poverty or inequality. It seems completely fair to me. And for anyone struggling to picture equity, I told you I'd get excited by this. So figure you're trying to see a baseball game. Now your average height, so about 5'9", and then you have a dude next to you who's 6'6", and then like a little kid next to you who's like 4'9". Now, if you need to see over the fence, say it's a standard privacy fence, the 6'6" guy is not going to need any help. He can see over fine. You and the little guy, though, are going to need help. Now, say you find 3 boxes, 3 wooden crates. If it were to be completely equal, tall guy, he never had an issue anyway. He's going to be able to see completely over the fence. You're going to be able to see just fine. You're getting what's necessary. But the short person is still not going to be able to see. So the tall guy gives his box to the short person. That's theoretically what equity is. And that's why the rich have an issue with it, because they're not even really going to have to give. They're going to have to pay more taxes, but they're going to lose their wealth and they're not going to make a benefit out of it. They're being too selfish. Which, I'm ending rant there. Let's move on. So in this, to ensure that the equity is fair, he's conducting an equity assessment of federal agencies. So they're going to This is even in the federal level. They're going to figure out who needs what funding within the federal government. And by who needs what, I mean your public affair or public aid. So the domestic policy programs. And another thing, which let me find it here, engagement with underserved communities. This is what really is what other administrations haven't done. You saw it a little bit with Obama. You've seen it. I wasn't around for Bill Clinton, but I know he was better than some. And this is what George Bush struggled with, and this is what Trump didn't try to do at all, was underserved communities. So he's going to implement federal policies and programs. The head of each shall evaluate opportunities consistent with applicable law to increase coordination, communication, and engagement with community-based organizations and civil rights organizations. So he's going to reach out to these underserved communities, figure out what they need, and get it to them. It seems so straightforward that how hasn't it happened sooner? And that's what I found with most of these executive orders. They just seem like common sense. They seem like, why didn't Obama do this? Why didn't Trump do this? Why didn't anyone try to do this? Which, I guarantee you a lot of this does come from the civil unrest of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter becoming extraordinarily mainstream. So now we're seeing these people's needs. So now President Biden is trying to reach out to them, which I find amazing. So these were the 6 that I generally found most interesting. I hope I clarified some of it up. Now, I know a lot of you are wondering why I didn't cover the minimum wage. Sorry, words eluded me for a second. And the reason I didn't cover minimum wage is because A, it wasn't in the Federal Register. These were published on the 25th. So these were published tomorrow by my time. Interesting. But they're still publishing these. Some of the last Trump orders had just been published today, so they're catching up. But the reason I didn't cover minimum wage was because it wasn't in the registry. But this is what I found out through alternate sources. The minimum wage does not mandate that Joe Schmo working the graveyard shift at McDonald's down the street is going to be making $15 an hour. I believe most of us can agree that is absurd, because you have some medical field like nurses or words are eluding me. Yeah, like, so secretaries at hospitals, or the lower level people doing way more strenuous work than making some drunk guy a McFlurry, that aren't making that money. So, did I just call it a McFlurry? I don't eat fast food, never mind. So you have people that are just gonna be bent out of shape by $15 an hour minimum wage, because they're not making that much, or they're gonna be making the same as a McDonald's employee. But that's not what it means. What this executive order did was it made it to where anyone working for the federal government, there's the catch, the federal government makes $15 an hour. So the national minimum wage for McDonald's is still going to be $7.25. That has to go through Congress. What President Biden did, I looked at Harris's name on my screen. What President Biden's doing is making it so no one who directly works for the federal government, no one's who's gonna be affected by this mask mandate, is gonna be paid under $15. So much of these executive orders only apply to the federal government, which is what is being spun. So, as timely and necessary as these orders are, they're still only going to apply to the federal government. The president's outreach still is very limited because of the framework of the government. When it comes to the government, you have to think of states as individual countries, which is basically how the framers decided to set it up, because it was the United States, and state at that time meant nation. Now, over time, vernacular has changed how we use the word state, but you have your Secretary of State, which means Secretary of the country. So Biden can't actually impose his will on everyday Americans as strongly as some conservatives or right-wing media pundits would have you believe. So don't be afraid of executive orders, because most of them will not actually affect us as citizens. But with all things considered, I'm glad that the president is doing this, and I think it is exactly what we need at this time in American history. So, well, thank y'all for watching. A little bit of my southern drawl there for y'all. This has been a long video. I plan on never making videos longer than this. I really fly by the seat of my pants here. I wrote 2 pages of notes, which I expected to take me 10 minutes, and we see how well that went. But anyway, so yeah, I'm still early in the channel. I'm still getting a feel for this. I'm really enjoying it, you guys. So if you are enjoying it, please like, please subscribe, so I know that you're enjoying it. I love doing this. This is my passion. I plan to go to college to pursue journalism, political science, history. If you want me to start doing like historical themed videos, let me know. Like if you guys have an idea for what I can do with this channel that you would like to see or that you think I might like, please comment. I will be reading them. And thank you for watching. This has been Indy. Goodbye.